Good evening and welcome to Embracing Diversity, an online diversity initiative where we meet bi-weekly to discuss issues where we tackle race concerns and embrace diversity and inclusion with various panelists. So tonight's topic is, what can the Olympics teach us about diversity, equity, and inclusion? We invite you to join the conversation on Facebook, drop your questions and your comments, and engage in the conversation. This evening, we have a guest moderator who will be leading our discussion. That is Vernon Comer. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Vernon.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for Embracing Diversity. I'm the guest moderator sitting in for Vicki. And let's see, first and foremost, once again, we'd like to just give a big shout out for the Embracing Diversity anniversary. Woohoo, this whole month. We've been celebrating the anniversary of Vicki on this venture. So shout out, thumbs up to Vicki for that. As a little bit of a background, I'm going to just give a little bit of a quick overview of the Olympic history. Basically, in 776 BC, the first Olympiad started, or was thought to have started in ancient Greece, as the first actual event was only like a 194-meter race in honor of Zeus. And the way the Greeks were, they sort of put the mythology in it, and at one point, supposedly, allegedly, the Olympics were based on Heracles, or Hercules as he's known in Roman, racing with some of his brothers, and they sort of race to Zeus, and then they were crowned with the, I don't know if you've seen the old Olympic scroll, the little thing that they wear on the head, but that's what they did. And when it actually started, when the Greeks started it, they actually held it every 4 years, and it was actually called an Olympiad, and that Olympiad, that became an actual designation of time in their calendar. The initial games were actually political in that the city-states used them to control some of their weaker rival political states. I mean, we all know about Sparta and the Spartans, and how they just thought they ruled the world until they met a certain king of Persia. And also the Olympics were, they incorporated religious celebrations, once again, with the other gods. And the beginning Olympics, they only allowed freeborn Greek men to participate. And the initial Olympics did not rotate at all. They stayed there. In AD 393, this was after, well, Rome took Greece over in 2 BC. In AD 393, Emperor Theodosius I of Rome was a Christian, and he actually called for a ban on all pagan festivals, and he considered the Olympics a festival. So he was like, no mas, no, we're done. But so basically there was a hiatus in the Olympics of probably about 1,500 years or so. Then Baron Pierre de Coubertin from France in 1892 proposed reviving the Olympics at a meeting of various Frenchmen in Paris. And 2 years later, he founded the International Olympic Committee, which of course, as we all know, is the governing body of the Olympics. And now the Olympics, as a tradition, are held every 4 years normally. And even when no games take place, they're actually numbered based on the year. Even in 1916 during World War I, in 1940 and 1944 as well during World War II, those years were numbered Olympic years, even though the Olympics did not take place. And of course, another thing is the flag with the white background with the 5 different color rings represents the continents, which are, of course, North America, South America, Asia, Africa, Europe, and Australia. So that's the basic background of the Olympics from whence we came. And I guess the first area of discussion I'd like to get into panel would be the Olympic athletes and motherhood. One person in particular, and I don't know if you all watched the Olympic trials, but Allyson Felix, she's 35 years old on her 5th Olympics, which is just awesome. And she's actually the first. She's actually got the most gold medals in track and field history, and she's the most decorated female athlete in U.S. history at this point in terms of medaling. But Allyson has an interesting story in her sort of run up to getting ready for the Olympics. She decided she wanted to be a mother, and she was with Team Nike for the longest while. I mean, because she's been, as I said, she's been in the Olympics, 2008 Olympics, 2012 Olympics. She was at 2008, she in Beijing, she was on the gold medal 4x400 relay team. 2012 in London, she was on the 4x400 relay team and the 4x100 relay team, and she won the individual 200 meter. Then 2016 in Rio, she was on the 4x400 relay and the 4x100 gold medal winning teams. So, she's got history. But what happened with her around 2018, or I'm sure before then, she decided she wanted to become a mother. And, as it were, she and her husband, Kenneth Ferguson, who's also a sprinter, they, worked on it and got pregnant, the way things happen. And, in the midst of her pregnancy, she actually ended up having preeclampsia, which is high blood pressure during her pregnancy. And she actually had to have an emergency C-section at 32 weeks. Her daughter Cameron was born successfully. However, Nike was sort of pushing her to go back to work, and they told her basically that, yeah, you can come back to training, but we're going to cut your pay 70% because we don't know what kind of form you're going to be in, or if you're going to be back to your Olympic form. And she basically told them, no. And what she ended up happening, she sort of worked herself back into shape. And in 2019, she won a 400 meter race. Well, she was 6th place in a 400 meter race. But I mean, we're talking literally, I think the baby was born in November of 2018. She was back racing 6 months later. So that's kind of awesome. But long story short, after Nike jettisoned her, she signed an apparel contract with Athleta, which is actually a division of Gap. And in 2019, she actually came up with her own shoe company. She and some colleagues, and it's called Saysh, S-A-Y-S-H, is how it's spelled. But it is actually her own shoe line. So now she's actually competing with Nike as far as providing athletic footwear. And I say good for her. The second person who's also on the 400 meter Olympic team this year is Quinera Hayes. She actually beat Allison Felix. She was first in the Olympic trials in the final, and Allison Felix was second. And she's a little bit younger than Allison, but it was a great race. But she also, Quinera, in October, she got pregnant, and she actually was carrying her child too low, and she couldn't run. She had to stop running, stop training completely. But once again, October 2018, her son was born, and no complications, no problems with him. And I don't know if you all saw their race, but after the Olympics, that was the most touching moment, where they brought the kids out on the track and they sort of hugged and had a little quick play date down on the track. But what say you, panel, about that? The fact that Nike would be so onerous in terms of being discriminating against this woman because she wanted to be a mother. And I mean, I know I can't speak for women, but I've seen this in corporate. I've heard about it in corporations all over. But what say you all? Helena, would you please grace us with a? I know you got a comment. Unmute yourself.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I have to start with the fact that the Olympics and all the history that you've shared with us, and those of us who may have picked up pieces here and there from commentaries or whatever, I'm a reader. So of course, as I grew up, I kept researching things about the Olympics. It's very patriarchal. It's not a women-centered kind of activity. Women were not the gladiators or the warriors that were racing and competing, because that just was not what they were supposed to do. So fast forward, look at who Nike has celebrated, especially in the last 20 years. They have been primarily men, with the exception of the Williams sisters. And when they got old enough, they discarded the Nike piece for the most part, because they were designing for Nike. And so we've seen them discriminate against women before, even ever so slightly. And more particularly in recent history, when Serena Williams had her daughter. The only reason they could not do anything about Serena is because Serena was making them billions of dollars. And we know that typically your Olympic athletes are amateurs. So they don't have the kind of clout behind it that some of the professional athletes that have made Nike a household name, they don't have that kind of buying clout. So it's not surprising that they did that to her. It is surprising that in this day and age, with everyone watching, they felt that they had enough to get away with it, and she was going to slither away in a corner and cry. And she showed them what for, as you put it. She showed them. I still think that this is a patriarchal kind of setup. No matter how many women are sitting at the table, they're going to always discriminate against women. And having children is because you're supposed to have the children, take care of the household. I'm going out, I'm the man, I'm going to be the warrior. And they still hold to that across this world, not just this country, but across this world. That's how a lot of these societies and these organizations and corporations and sponsors, that's how they treat people. I have yet to see an equitable situation in any of those situations, but it's ironic that you only hear about the ones when they arbitrarily and viciously cut the paydays of those athletes of African American descent. Let's just face it. It's them. It's them who they shoot down the most. You never hear about the deals that came with professional tennis. I remember Chris Everett Lloyd. She never had to compete about the money that she was making as an endorser when she was on the pro tour. You don't hear that about women golfers. You don't. But it's the high profile African American women athletes that get cut about this. So it bothers me, but then again, it makes me happy because, as you guys know, Black women are not known for taking anything lying down. So she said, fine, you don't want to sponsor me at the level to which I am valued, then I'll start my own. And I think that was one of the most fabulous things that she could have ever done. Yes, she was already in the mix when the other young lady was getting in the mix for the Olympics. So she did not experience that slap in the face. But because of Allison will sign her to her label. And the other women that are a part of the track team, especially track and field. And I think that's going to be a changing face for the Olympics and for those people who want to sponsor Olympians. I mean, what did they do? I'm just asking this out here just to be arbitrary, but what did they do about Bruce Jenner when he decided she was a she? Now, I said when he decided he was a she. What did they do? I remember Wheaties boxes with his name on it. I remember him guest appearing on all these different things as this, epitome of a male specimen, competitive male warrior. Okay. And now he is claiming he's a she. So have they cut his money? No. Can they go and get his money out of the bank? No. Will they even try? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I really think that it's a shame in the 21st century, but then again, it didn't get this way overnight and it's not going to change overnight, but women are changing it, and women like Allison are changing it. Women like Serena are changing it. They're taking it by the reins and saying, okay, fine, you don't like it, I'll move on and get my own thing. And that's what they're doing. So for me, kudos. I can't wait to see who else gets signed and sponsored by Allison, because that's what these amateur athletes are living on while they're training full time. They're full-time amateur athletes. So they got to have some kind of way to sustain themselves and their families. And this was a way to do it. And Nike just showed you who they were. So I'm not surprised by their actions. I am happy about Allison's actions, and I'm looking forward to seeing how big this gets and how big we make it, because it's going to depend on the women to make it bigger. That's me. I'm sorry. Okay, the feminist in me just came out. Please forgive me.
Amen. Amen. Let the church say amen. You said what needed to be said. I'd like to see if Mr. Lewis has any comments. Mark Lewis, my former roommate.
Of course, I truly, great to meet you, Helena. I hope I said that properly. And Valerie, I truly like to listen. And of course, the Spelmanites, I have a Spelmanite of 2018 and a Bennett Bell, Spelmanite 215 and Bennett Bell 218. So I to you both.
Thank you.
I like to put it in the context is when we look at DE&I, it still goes back to the first thing they see. Okay, the first thing they see. That's not going to change. I've been around the world for work, maybe 37 different countries, and the first thing they see is Mark the Black man from America. And they're really short-sighted, because if they're saying it's about the money, it's not about the race or women. If they just did an analysis, there's more women of color in the world than any other group. And it behooves them if they're looking, saying it's a business decision, to look even further. I applaud Allison Felix for her decision in pushing back. But what's important is there's a unified effort of all of the athletes saying, we're going to take a stance. And one thing I've really learned about the Olympics over the years is I started watching the Olympics. I think my first one was Cassius Clay, 1960, was it 64? I go back that far. I'm class of 83 Morehouse. And I've always looked at the Olympics as a political statement consistently. At every Olympics, there's some type of political statement being made, and have paid attention to it. So I am in a household of truly supporting gender and gender support. And I think what I really want to see is Black women and Black men really continuing the team and really work together to push the envelope even further along. And I think that's going to happen. But I think it's a great opportunity, and it's up to the other athletes to also support her. And that's my 2 cents right now. I'll listen a little more and I'll chime in again.
Thank you, Mark. Absolutely. Absolutely. And last but not least, Ms. Valerie.
Okay. Personally, I think that that was a blessing in disguise. I think that whole thing with Nike was actually a really good nudge for Allison Felix to do something she probably was thinking about doing anyway, but I have a feeling maybe she wasn't planning to pull the trigger right about now. And I really think that that move for her, we might not necessarily see it immediately, but I think that we will begin to see other women taking a stance. I believe that she will actually begin to change the culture in the Olympics, and you never change culture without a struggle, especially a long-lasting culture, a long-standing culture of the Olympics, as everybody else has described. So I'm pretty hopeful, and she's not the only female athlete that's changing the tone. And I don't want to get ahead. I'm not quite sure what you have planned for us in terms of this discussion, but I'll leave it at that. I believe that what happened with Allison Felix is, a blessing in disguise for her. It was the nudge that she needed, but I think it was also inspirational beyond the Olympics. I found it inspiring, for myself. And I believe that long-term cultural change is going to come about.
Mm-hmm. It was an opportunity for her. I always call it innovate within. And that's what she did, was to innovate. And she really has done that. I know all of us in our careers, through chaos comes change and improvement.
Wow. Wow. That's wisdom. That's wisdom, y'all. And, it's funny. I felt you, Valerie, starting to go there, and I knew where you were headed. And that's actually the next sort of topic we're going to actually sort of broach, minority athletes and their actual progress. And what I wanted to do, I was going to sort of, I'm looking at the 2021 Olympic teams and the representation. And yes, minority athletes dominate the normal sports, the speed sports and the strength sports, where our fast twitch fibers, allow us to win races and that kind of thing. But my sort of focus, and just, once again, giving it up for you all in terms of who you spoke to historically, speaking about Cassius Clay. I actually get chills whenever I see the picture of Tommy Smith and John Carlos with their glove fists up, with their black glove fists up in the '68 Olympics. And, for shame on Avery Brundage for throwing them out and taking their medals. And that's a wrong that I think, maybe, hopefully, President Biden or somebody will correct sooner than later, because that's ridiculous. But who I was, what I was looking at in my little research was the sports, the non-traditional sports that we are gaining ground in. And the one that I see as far as Olympic sports that we are particularly gaining, making great gains in, is gymnastics. With Simone Biles, of course, but actually, I want to step back a few years and start off with just, I don't know if you all remember Dominique Dawes. Dominique won bronze medal for team in 1992. She also won a gold team medal in 1996, the Olympics here in Atlanta. And she was the first Black woman to win an Olympic gold medal for gymnastics. And she also won, and then in 2000, she won a bronze team medal. So she was actually in 3 Olympics. Then we had her follow up with Gabby Douglas in 2012. And it doesn't seem like it's been that long ago. But Gabby Douglas in 2012 won gold. She was the first all around Black woman to win gymnastics. And she also won a team in 2012 because that team was awesome. And then in 2016, she won a gold team medal in Rio. And that was sort of bridging into the sort of end of Gabby Douglas era and the beginning of Simone Biles domination, to say the least. And just looking at Simone Biles, in 2016, Simone won gold all around. She won gold for the team. She won gold for the individual vault and gold for the floor exercise. And she won a bronze on the balance beam. So it's like, wow. 1, 2, 3, 4 gold medals. And as you all know, what is it? The in addition to the Biles, that, the move they named after her, there's also the Yurchenko double pike, that she's the only woman that's ever done that in competition. And she nailed it. It was just like, oh my goodness, she nailed it. And despite what happened with the gymnastics team and the Dr. Larry Nassar scandal, with him abusing those babies, she's prospered. She has done her thing. And one of the things that I like that she has done as well is she and her folks opened her gym. And y'all remember her story. Her mom was strung out on drugs, and basically her grandparents adopted her her and her sister, because they didn't know it was that bad. But they adopted her and moved her, and I think they're in Texas now, but she opened her own gym. And, as you stated, Valerie, and as you stated, Helena, those athletes of those caliber are drawing the other athletes, are drawing the younger athletes, because one of her teammates, Jordan Childs, is actually training with her. And Jordan Childs started training with her 2 years ago. And at that point, Jordan Childs was like, you know, she was about to drop out of gymnastics completely. But now with the encouragement and with the coaching and Simone and Team Simone, she's on the Olympic team. And speaking of that Olympic team, the gymnastic team, once again, the come up, out of the, 5 team and 2 individual, you have 3 women of color. In addition to Simone Biles, you have Jordan Childs, and you have Sunisa Lee. Sunisa is a Hmong, which they are small tribe, Southeast Asia. Some of the people who that wonderful war disturbed and they got displaced, and a lot of them moved over here. And she's representing as well, but it once again, you know, basically a third of the team, you know, or almost 2/3 of the team is women of color. So that is actually beautiful. Actually swimming, and I actually posted an article in the chat. Swimming, not as much. I mean, it's still a battle. Simone Manuel, who is the 2016 Rio 100-meter freestyle winner, and she was also in the 4x100 medley. She won a gold, and she won a silver in the 50 free. She and Natalie Hines are the only Black women on the team this year. And this is Natalie Hines' first time, and she's actually University of Florida undergrad, and she's in the 100-meter freestyle for the Olympics. There's also a young lady, another Asian young lady, Tori Husky. She's in the 100-meter butterfly. But out of a team of 26 women and 23 men, there's only 2 Black women on the team and no Black men. So, you know, we made gains, but then it's like, okay. And then the final sport that I looked at for this was fencing, which is even smaller. There's a gentleman by the name of Khalil Thompson, and he is on the Olympic team for fencing. And he's the only person that looks like us on the team. And once again, my question becomes, and I want to start with you, Valerie, but why? Why is the access limited just based on patriarchy? Is it limited based on access to the training and the networks? Is it limited by cost? Is it limited by parental support? Because those, you know, those non-traditional sports, they require a lot of time, a lot of money, travel, and you got to have parents that see your promise, that are willing to invest in you. Because I just love the video of Simone when she was little and just tumbling her little behind off, and it's like, wow, who would have thunk it? But enough of me. Go ahead, take it away, Valerie.
Yeah, I think a lot of it does have to do with access in terms of financial ability. You know, it's not cheap to train, regardless of what sport. I think of all of those sports, track is probably most accessible because, you know, that's something you can do on the street if you had to. But, you know, it's not very often that you will find a gym in a low-income African-American community. I don't know of any. I believe they want to do one in North Lawndale at some point, because we are fortunate enough to have a promising young gymnast in North Lawndale. But, you know, her dad also happens to be her uncle happens to be the alderman of the community. Her granddad was also a park district superintendent at some point, so they kind of have access and an awareness for the importance of gymnastics, but that's not very common. So I believe, when you look at swimming, again, you don't always have access to an Olympic-sized pool in local communities. And we're very fortunate in North Lawndale that Collins High School actually does have an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And that's also in the park. But, again, that's not very common. And then you have an issue of programming, disparities in programming in Black communities versus white communities for public parks. So yes, it is an issue of accessibility. It's an issue, I believe, of economics, and this is not to stereotype, but I believe people who are tenacious, they will find a way to do it. And I think you're finding more and more people finding a way, but I also think too, in spite of the fact that folks are finding a way, that the culture has not really changed in sports. I think about Debbie Thomas when she was competing in the Olympics, and I always just admired her beautiful physique, wishing I could be built up like Debbie Thomas. But they would talk about Debbie Thomas's physique and call her athletic. They never really called her beautiful and graceful. And you looked at who was the German figure skater? She was built a little bit differently, more slender, and that was the ideal.
Katarina Vick.
Yeah, Katarina Vick. Yeah, that was the ideal white body, or the ideal body for white people. And then, I'm looking at the different videos I see on YouTube now that we're focusing on Simone Biles and her being the greatest of all time. I'm seeing Bart Connor and Nadia Comaneci with all of these retro films, of Nadia getting the 10 for the first time. And I watched her get that 10, and I really, really admired her. But then I look at those old films and I look at Simone now, I'm like, it's no comparison, but they refuse. They refuse to give Simone Biles her 10. In fact, they actually dock her for doing what no other woman can do, and very few men. But I know I'm drifting off. That's not what we're talking about. But I do believe it is a matter of access. But I'm also reminded of my dad. He says, you give a Black person equal opportunity and they will excel every time. So I see that time and time again in the Olympics, and even with some of these untraditional sports.
Let the church say amen again. First of all, Valerie, Lawndale, Illinois.
Lawndale, Chicago, West Side.
Yes. Okay. I know it well through community development.
Okay.
Lawndale CDC up there.
Yes.
And the health center and all that. Oh, wow.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that Lawndale.
We'll have to chat later.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. All right. Excellent points. You're right on. When you spoke about Debbie Thomas, I was, and how she struggled. And I don't know if you remember also the young lady from France, the young sister, Celia Bonali.
Yes.
How excellent she was. And they, like you said, they still would not give her. Celia Bonali was doing double axles and triple axles.
Yeah.
Men were falling, and she was, holding it down. And it's like amazing.
360 degree flips.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Just totally awesome. In fact, let's go with Mr. Lewis. Mark, jump in.
I'm going to say it's access again, but I'm going to move a little bit in a different direction, because I'm going to look at women's softball. Okay. And the talent is all over the place, all through America. But if you can't get on a travel team, okay, or there isn't that investment, or if your parents are moving around like we did from Detroit to Ohio to Chicago, and your daughters can't get on a travel team, then again, it's access, but that limits us. I look at when Americans really, Black Americans really started to get into sports, it was baseball first. And when we think about athletics, I always feel that we're better baseball players than anything else. All of us started in baseball first. But when we go back to what Valerie is saying, it is access. It has to be that community or that commitment from the parents. Simone Biles' parents were committed to being able to make the network and to get the investment in her in order for her to get the proper training. And we have to find ways of understanding the system and create those avenues of access, because we've been around long enough that we can depend on each other. And that's what we need. We have to get better at working together. And, you know, that's a start there, and it starts with parents, and, you know, that can send us into a whole nother structure of the family household and all, but that's for another night. But it has to go with access and commitment.
Helena?
Yes, sir. I can't add anything earth-shattering to what Valerie and Mark have both said. So you're right, Mark, access is key. Valerie is right. It does have some economic challenges that are presented to us. And as your daddy said, you know, if you set the bar high, you'll reach it, basically. Is that not correct? Well, the same thing economically when it comes to preparing young people for this lifestyle. Because it's just not just preparing them, you prepare the whole family for this lifestyle. There are a lot of sacrifices that have to be made for that athlete to excel. And there are not many people in our communities who recognize an innate talent that can and should be developed to the next level. It's usually accidentally found, you know, running on a local track team just for, you know, for kicks and giggles, or joining an AAU team, which is now one of the most prolific forms of travel I have ever seen in my life. It boggles my mind how much those kids travel and how
Actually,
many of
I'm
yes.
saying that, I'm sorry to cut in,
No.
but I must say that when Vernon and I played football, we practiced. Didn't have AAU, we practiced all the time. They use AAU as the practice now. And so that's another side conversation, and
we'll get to that one. But I think that those things are paramount, but we also have to stop allowing other people to recognize the talent within our own kids. Simone's grandparents knew nothing about gymnastics, but they saw that baby came into their home and she flipped everywhere. She would run, jump, leap, pirouette, whatever. And so they sought to nourish that in her, because I'm sure that as grandparents feeling some sort of obligation based on their background, they wanted to provide her with something positive. And it turned out to be something that was destined to be. It wasn't just Oh, you'll take gymnastics for a few years, work on your posture, work on this, that, and the other, and then you'll move on to something else. It took a commitment from the grandparents and her sister in order for her to reach that. And then it took some people who didn't look like her to recognize that she could go to the highest pinnacle. And that's where she trained. Okay, let's face it. She was under the Carollis. Well, that tree fell. But we've got to stop letting other people tell us what we're talented at doing and not doing. We've got to stop it. I mean, come on now. We were running, jumping, and flying before people even knew what that was. So why is it we got to wait for you to tell me that my child can do an uneven parallel bar? Why is it that you can tell me whether or not my child is going to be able to sustain any kind of competitiveness in gymnastics? I was a competitive gymnast up until I reached a certain age in my life where Mother Nature took over. If you look at those physiques, as Valerie mentioned before, most of those competitive athletes have a different kind of physique than the person who's just the same age with the same pretty much genetic makeup, but their training has made them shape differently. For instance, think back with me to the Dominique Dawes or Gabby Douglas or Syria Bonelli. When they were competitive, they were muscular, their upper bodies were wide, their lower torsos were thin, and genetically, that's not who women of African descent are. And as a gymnast, I had to accept the fact that my center of gravity changed. And in women of color, our center of gravity is not in our torso. Gentlemen, and Miss Valerie, you already know.
No
So
comment.
I had to
No
stop
comment.
doing gymnastics
No
because
comment.
my physique took over. And I was okay with that. But that never stopped me from watching it, from learning it. My mother, who's a depression baby, who was a depression baby, she learned gymnastic terms and routines. I mean, she could judge her competition because of her being around me. My niece, we couldn't find her athletic. She had more than a little bit of athletic ability. Her physique is that of an athlete, but she didn't have the committedness to stay with it. And God bless her, her mother didn't either, because she was not a competitive athlete like that. She played tennis, which is a solo person doing a solo thing. But as far as a team and the constant, she didn't have that either. So it's a difference is in our mode of thinking, I think, as the village, so to speak. Because if you look at football, Mark and Vernon, you see they still getting phenomenal Adonis-like creatures who are the first to go to college, which is where they're recruited from. They're the first in their family to move out of one depressive situation to step up. And so what happens? They get caught up. We have to push our own, and the village has to do it, which is probably why I do what I do for work. Because I didn't see enough of us getting exposure to those things like those AAUs and those other travel type situations. And when it comes to athletes or academics, I didn't see that happening even in my own life. So I wanted to be sure that they were at least aware. Until we can build our own network, this is the route that you might consider taking. So when it comes to these first, it's a lot of things. It's accessibility, it's economics. It's also the village helping to push them. Small town America will get behind a little girl who has been shown to have potential to move forward, and they will sink everything they can as a village for that little girl to push her to the next levels as far as she can go. We have to learn how to do that for ourselves. And we've got, let's face it, there's not a sport we don't play. There's some that we have not reached the highest heights in for various reasons, but for me, most of that has been, I've not seen that sport before, so I still don't understand soccer. But everybody puts their child in soccer. That's their first team sport. You know, they're going to soccer now, learning how to kick the ball. No rules, just kick the ball. And that's wonderful in their confidence. But if we see someone who's going to be the American version of Pele, is it going to take somebody who doesn't look like them to recognize that and to nurture that? And by the time they do, these young people are too old as far as the amount of training that has gone into it. Because if you remember, Nadia Comaneci, she was taken from her parents at the age of 3 and moved to a gymnastics facility run by the USSR. And she didn't see her family for 10, 12 years. They trained her. That was her job. She was born to train. That's it. That's all you're going to do. We can't afford to do that. And our children can't afford that kind of mental anguish too. It's not part of who the wholesome person is. It just depends on how much we want to make them a spectacle versus a competitor.
Okay, Helena, you raised a good point about Nadia Comaneci and the way she was trained, basically taken away from her parents to just be this thing. I guess in those communist countries, they kind of pick out who you are and what you're going to do very early in life, and you kind of get on these tracks. But it's interesting that one gymnast has actually, and I can't think of her name, she's got a Japanese last name. She actually got off the fast track of, competing for the Olympics and as an elite star. And she actually started competing at the college level. I forget her last name. Is it somebody Oshie?
Osaka? Naomi Osaka?
No.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Her mom is white, her dad is Japanese American, but she talked about, the body shaming. Her body was not a typical gymnastic looking body. I guess she was too fleshy and had too many hips and whatnot. She couldn't eat what she wanted to eat. They shamed her and said that she would be a pig, blah, 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 blah. So she got off that treadwheel, so to speak, and started competing at the college level. And she said she found joy in the game again. So I think at this point, training for the Olympics, I guess when we were growing up, you were definitely the AAU people, you're definitely amateurs, but right now, a lot of these
they're pros.
Right. So it's a whole different mindset. And having that professional mindset and that discipline, I think, is critical. And we're not really instilling in our kids, this is my opinion, and this is someone who doesn't have kids, right? But it's something that I observe, from children that I see. They don't seem to be quite as disciplined as kids were when we were growing up. They don't seem to have quite the parental support who made sure they were disciplined or else. If you don't find that from within and somebody from the outside, as you were saying before, to reinforce it, it's going to be very difficult.
They can't compete. They don't have the mindset to compete at the levels that Olympians are competing. Olympians are competing like pros. They really are. They're being paid by their sponsors to train year round and compete year round. And so they're really semi-pros, if you want to say it. They haven't got the pro title, but they're semi-pros.
Right. And they have more interest.
Yeah.
They have more interest than we did. I mean, when I say that, we didn't have cell phones. I mean, we didn't have.
We got choices. They didn't have choices.
So
we don't have choices.
I mean, or in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I would work. I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and wake up in the morning, do the few chores I had, then got on my bike, and I was all over West Akron, sometimes going, and did not return until it was almost, of course, street light time.
Street lights came on.
Okay. They have different interests. I mean, my wife was a phenomenal high school athlete, great genes, first round draft choice, nephew in the NFL right now. And my daughters, same but they didn't have that same, let's say, interest or desire. And I think we have to adapt to the times. And, again, there was a lot of times where our interest waned in the Olympics, and I'm glad to see that it's back.
Mhm.
Interest is there. And again, I think we have to work on that network of being able to, you make great ideas and gave great examples of, we have to be able to recognize the talent earlier.
Mhm.
And it shouldn't come from out. I mean, Simone Biles' parents or grandparents recognized that, but it was someone from the outside that said, when I first saw her bounce up and down, I said, I got to coach her.
Mhm.
Created the interest. And we have
But
to
let me ask you a question though. Don't you think that, because we do see more and more, I mean, more countries are participating in the Olympics than when we all first started watching them as children. And there are more people of color excelling, representing their countries. It's actually showing me, if I were 100 years younger, maybe I could be competitive on that level. I'm just saying, because you see people that look like you see people of color, women of color running and flipping and playing basketball. You're seeing those things now, whereas when we were younger, 100 years ago, me personally, I mean, the only Black people you saw were the ones who were running track and in the boxing ring, because I remember all the boxing. We watched all the boxing. I remember the Spinks brothers, all of those guys. That's all we had. And so now that you're seeing more, the thirst to know and do more is out there, but we haven't cultivated our children to really watch those things, appreciate those things, and at least give them a try. I'm running into young people who have not even tried some things and they're adamant against them. I'm like, really? I used to be like Mark, couldn't wait to get my Saturday chores over. And as soon as American Bandstand and Soul Train went off, my girlfriends, we all knew it was, when he said Soul and Train, the bikes were already rolling out the driveway and we were gone for the rest of the day.
Right.
These kids don't have that now. I don't know if we've given them too much or if we have not forced them, because Mama always said, when I mop this floor, nobody's allowed in the house because she wasn't going to dirty up her house. So we were forced outside, but we kind of loved being outside doing things. And we've allowed our children to become couch potatoes. Intellectually, they're brighter, whether they realize it or not. They're brighter in some ways than we were. Socially, they're a little bit cramped sometimes, and I see them in college. So, I get to see them just before they, where y'all got them on skates. I see them. And there are things that you try to teach them at that late stage, and the same thing goes for competitive sports. If they have not participated and stayed with it, whether they whined and cried and pitched a fit with a burger and a cup of cocoa or something on their way to practice at 6 o'clock in the morning, where you're committed, they're committed, you take them anyway. You got to see this to the end. They don't really have a lot of stick-to-itiveness, which you have to have as a competitive athlete. You have to, because there are going to be many days that you're going to be alone training. You're going to be like Simone at the trials last week. You heard them say something that she had said in a previous championship that she won, of course, was, I'm competing against myself now. So that's all her and her mind. Her mind can will her body to do what she needs it to do. If she can't tap into her own inner self, I can't tap into it for her. Her coaches can't. And that's something that has to come up with them, whether they're doing gymnastics or doing, academic math or mathlete. I don't care. But it's stick to it. And other than, what's the new game that they play now? They got the rocking chair thing. I don't know, Minecraft. Minecraft, but it's mind numbing. It's body numbing. They don't have the physique to ride for 8 hours on Saturday and be home before the street light comes home.
Oh, you're right.
They
Right.
don't have it. Many of them have bicycles, but they all rotted because they don't ride them. I've got a kid I gave golf clubs to when he was 5. Oh, he wanted to be Tiger Woods. I took him to first tee. He
Yeah.
went out there one time, and when it came time for him to go back because he wanted to go, neither one of his parents found the time to do it. And I refused to be their parent. I said, I've introduced you, I've got you the clubs, let's get started. I had somebody who was willing to coach him and just teach him the game. But they didn't keep up with it because they were allowed to make that monumental decision to stick to something. And so I think that's also a part of it. I mean, you talk economics, you talk accessibility, but I think also that as a village, we've got to learn to recognize and to force them to finish something. Even if they're not the best at it, it's good to finish. It's good to finish that race, to finish competing, finish your season, and not allow them to quit at the drop of a hat. I think that's something else that hinders a lot of us from making ground in some of these untapped sports.
Mhm.
I didn't know that there was a brother playing hockey until last year.
No, it's
Who knew?
it's a big group playing now, and they are the real deal.
They are. And I
They are
watched
the
the
real deal.
documentary of the first Black man that broke into the National Hockey League and
Mhm.
learned his story. I mean, okay, both of my parents were coaches. I'm sorry. But that fascinated me. Never heard his name before in my life. But I was fascinated by that story. And I'm like, that makes sense. He was upstate New York or somewhere where it was cold, Akron. And, that's what they had to do. They got out of the house and that's what he learned to do. The only Black family on his street. Our kids don't know that struggle. They don't know what it is to play with each other anymore. They barely talk to each other with any kind of conscious civility. I find that difficult to understand because if you can't talk to someone that looks like you with a civil tongue in your head, how are you going to pay attention to a coach? How are you going to have that amount of respect to a coach or a parent for that matter? Or, I just don't see those things happening because the village needs to step in right now. I think in this transition of the world, the village has got to get stronger in recognizing and training them. You remember the whole village trained us from the neighbor next door to the lady that your mama taught, or all those people were a part of your village and they could correct you and teach you without getting lip. Can't do that
Right.
anymore. So how are you going to train the athlete that's going to excel if you can't even talk to them about something they're doing? It's a lot of things that hinder us, but the village has got to shore back up. We have forgotten to be the village for these people because we don't want to get our feelings hurt. I mean, I've spent my life getting my feelings hurt, but I've also spent my life stepping on some toes because that's what I do for work. And it was fun. But I hear my students now as adults saying, oh my God, I just sounded like you. I said, ooh, somebody did listen. What greater form of flattery, right, than imitation? So I think that that's one of the things that we have to do in order to get even more prolific in these Olympic Games than we are. Because, I mean, there are people of color in every country. They're just not represented in their teams. But if you think about it, there are people, I mean, like I said, I didn't know that there were Black people in France that were competitive and athletic like that, except military people who may be there temporarily or some kind of sign, until I saw Syria Bonali, until I saw Tony Parker.
Mhm.
I mean, come on, I just didn't know. That was my ignorance, but I just didn't know. So I'm glad.
As much as I've traveled, I go to Brazil, they don't know I'm Brazilian until I open my mouth. Okay. And in most countries, it's the same. And there's a lot of people around the world that look like us.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to capitalize on that network and teach that. But I think it's coming through from a diversity standpoint. And I think this is important. I just am hopeful that the DE&I wave continues. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this before. It's hot for a while and then it's gone.
Exactly.
And so,
Helena,
Yes, sir.
I hear what you're saying about the village, but I guess my thing, especially when it comes to us, the cohesiveness, the unity, the togetherness, the
Mhm,
things that, even when we were in school,
mhm,
you know, there was, you didn't let, like when Mark and I were roommates, there is nobody that was going to come at Mark and not
mhm,
come through me, and vice
mhm,
versa.
mhm.
And we had each other's backs. There were times with us in football practice, I don't feel like, come on, man, come on, let's go. But
Right.
we don't, um, we just, how do you get that back? How do you inculcate that into some of the younger people now? I have a young man that um, he calls me Moses and I call him the young Joshua. So we sort of feed off of each other in terms of energy and ideas. And I'm like, I may not have the energy, and he loves our people and he loves the young people. He's a teacher and he's
Mhm,
also a trumpet player. And he's doing the work, he's putting in the time, but you don't have a lot of our people. And I guess, and I heard your passion about the village needing to shore up, but it seems as though even some people in our age range are
mhm,
just like, okay, I got my 3.5 Mercedes and I'm retiring, and I ain't got time for this, that, and the other. And
mhm,
it does not make sense. It's
mm.
like, yeah, I'm concerned about, some of the brothers on the street, but it's like, if I see somebody blatantly acting stupid, I'm gonna be like, yo, excuse me, young man, you don't know me, I don't know you, but that's not it. That's not
Mhm.
that's not the way. And that's just because of who I am. But and you spoke to kids not having it in them. Unfortunately, some of that comes from parents. I mean, I know some people that are very self-motivated who didn't have it at home, but a
Mhm,
lot of that comes from parents. I mean, me personally, started with my parents, my grandparents. Both sets of my grandparents. Nobody finished high school, but
mhm,
they managed to produce 2 college grads, 2 Tuskegee grads, who produced. Uh, I'm a Morehouse, and my brother, he's a Tuskegee Institute engineer. Um, and beyond the parents and the immediate family, coaches, Boy Scout leaders, those people used to speak, and even ROTC instructors, those people used to speak into your life,
mhm,
and they held you to a standard. They held you to a, even to the point where they'd be on you, and you'd be like, well, why are you on me so hard, coach? Why you dogging me, coach? It's like, I see your potential. If you just push yourself a little harder, a little farther. Because actually one of our coaches at Morehouse, Coach Willie Hill, um, we did some crazy things at Morehouse with no equipment, and we did some crazy things. But one of the things playing for Coach Hill showed me was that I can do, if given an opportunity, if given a little glimmer of light, I can do almost anything. I pray to God, God, give me the strength, give me the ingenuity, give me the creativity, and I just need a little crack. I don't need you to open the door
mhm,
wide open. I need a crack.
mhm,
But a lot of people, a lot of younger people, they don't have that. Like you said, Helena, they'll go to practice a couple of days, coach dog them, and make them run extra line. Man, I don't need this. I don't need this. Man, F this, man. I don't need this. When all they got to do, just endure one more day.
mhm,
Gets easier, one more day. But I guess with our athletes, with our children in general, how do we get back to that, or how do we build a new generation up to that?
The closer I get to retirement, the more I ask that same question.
Okay, okay.
I'm tired. But I think that it's gonna have to be an emotional revolution for us
Okay.
as the extended family to
Mhm.
recapture those things that were the best of us coming up, instead of working ourselves to the bone so we can provide them with the newest PS4 or with the latest car or the latest iPhone, which costs more than my house note.
Right,
Um,
right.
to teach them how to work for and earn and be the best of themselves. Those organizations that we were a part of that had those villages, those coaches, those Christian board of Christian education leaders at church, etc. Those folk are our parents.
Now,
Right.
hold
We
on.
are not them.
Wait, Helena, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. When you
Well,
said
no,
border,
you asked me a question. I'm about to get there, but
oh,
you're right. You're right. I'm
no,
gonna
no,
get off.
no. I'm not trying to
You
correct
talk to
you.
Vernon, and we'll talk about how do we get it back, because
No,
I think we're going to have to re-educate our people how to be that village again. We've become
right.
too separate. We've become too cloistered in our own little worlds and our own little trudge to get all that we can get.
Right.
And we're not pouring into the next generation what was poured into us.
Okay,
And
Helena,
yes, ma'am.
I'm interrupting you, not because I was correcting you. It was something you said about border Christian education, and I'm just wondering if you're AME.
CME.
Okay, all
That's
right.
a big Methodist thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
A big
All right, as you were, I'm AME.
Oh, see, we are the same churches,
Right.
we are.
We are.
But
Yeah.
Berna, so I think we can do it, but we just got to change how we operate. We have skipped a generation
Right.
and missed it with this current generation of elementary school parents. I see it with my latest acquisition of goddaughters. Their mother is thinking in a totally different way. And I'm younger than her mother. And even I see some things that she needs to pour into them at this age. I try to when I get to them, and they have a different conversation with me than they do with their own mother, but I'm not with them 24/7. I can't polish them the way I was polished on a daily basis. No matter where, if I went to the corner store or went to my girlfriend's house across town. It's just, we've got to recapture how we are dealing with one another, because so many kids are so disrespectful, and they're disrespectful to their parents, not just to you. I saw a little girl today melt down completely because she didn't want to do her work. So she wanted to call her dad. Well, she thought about that. Dad was going to give her a bad punishment she wasn't going to be happy with. So then she thought she'd want to call her mother. The teacher said, "You don't want me to call her." And then she thought about that wasn't a good idea. Who am I going to call? So she just sat there and disrupted class for an hour, screaming at the top of her lungs. Can you imagine what would have happened to us had we done something like that in our village? I mean, we would have got and then it would have been all your teeth on the floor. And then, it's just a different way that we have raised subsequent generations, our progeny, and how they're raising their children, or how we're having to re-raise their children. So I think all of that plays into developing these world-class athletes as well. It's a mindset first, and it comes with that everybody being a part of holding you to a higher standard. These kids don't have a standard except on video games and how well they can imitate someone on TikTok. I think that's because we have been training them to be computer literate, be computer savvy. That's the way of the new world, but we haven't learned that human piece that also elevates them to the new world. And so I think the passionate educator that I have been for 30 some odd years, ready to retire, by the way, that's what it seems like to me. With each generation of students that I have seen, I have gotten more and more convinced of how far away from the mark we have moved. And how can we get back there? We just got to go back to basics. Just like you guys said earlier, we got to go back to basics. We got to recognize our own. We got to acknowledge your good stuff and stop you in your bad stuff. But, you know, we can't, the four of us can't do it, but we've got to keep trying to talk to younger folks and see if they can't catch on. And, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement last summer, the worldwide outrage over George Floyd, all of those things are showing you how small this world really, really is. And it's even smaller when you're talking about world-class competition. They know each other. They do know each other.
Mhm.
They're well versed in who's who and who's coming from what college and what country they're coming from. But again, that has now become tied to economics. And you know, the top of that economic tree is going to be European American or European
Mhm.
male, European female, Black male, and then of course,
Mhm.
Black women. That's the way the world has cultivated us, and that's the way they're trying to keep us, even though as I think it was it you, Vernon, or was it Mark that said, you know, when you travel over the world, you see that there are more women of color, any hue, than there are people of European descent. So guess what? Let's own this. That's how we're going to get our children to grow differently, is we've got to own it. That's what I see. I mean, you asked me, so I just tell you that's what I see. But I'm ready to retire so I can pass that on to somebody else. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's good. We're at that time. First and foremost, let me thank you, ladies, and I thank Mark. Mark had to drop off,
Mhm.
but I really want to thank you for your sharing your thoughts and your ideas. And hope is not lost. I mean, you know,
No.
the Olympics is a just a snapshot of our world. It really is, and
I cannot wait to watch it.
yeah, I'm actually excited because one of the people I found out in my research, which is really crazy, there's this young lady in Great Britain named Alice Deering. She's the first Black woman ever on Great Britain's Olympic swimming team ever.
Wow. Wow.
This is 2021. It's like, you guys. So
Exactly.
yeah,
In Great Britain,
I'm
who never
encouraged.
had a princess or a queen of color.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
quite
Well,
right.
well, yeah, they have.
Yes, Charlotte was.
Right.
Queen Charlotte. But they don't want to acknowledge that. They keep
Right.
saying Megan
no,
was, but she's not. Charlotte was a redhead with freckles. But
yeah,
again, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having us. Thank you for hosting us.
Yeah.
This conversation opens up so many things that are tied to all of our histories
right.
globally. And it's fun. It's fun to meet my brothers and sisters again.
Yes.
We're just family. These are the kinds of conversations we would have in the caf, but
Right.
or
Right.
outside the commons, maybe. How about that?
Right. Right.
And we never sought to solve the world's problems. We had to first acknowledge what they were.
Right. Right.
And we've gotten older now, and as we've created new problems, we've killed the old.
Indeed.
And
Yes.
so thank you for this opportunity. This is fabulous. This has actually got my emotional and my intellect rolling. I've been in a funk for the past few weeks, so I want to thank the powers that be that put me into the connection with you guys tonight.
Yes.
It's been a rough season the last 4 weeks.
Okay.
And so the Olympics gave me something to look forward to. The Hawks actually winning got me looking forward to something. And being with you actually gave me something tonight. So I appreciate you and thank you. And let's do this again on another topic,
Yes.
because a friend of mine gave us some more topics while he was just saying, you get up and you do this.
Okay.
Again, my village now.
Well,
My
also
village.
thank you to Vicky and
Absolutely.
for first of all giving me the opportunity tonight. And, once again, I enjoyed you all. Valerie, you got any parting comment?
I want to say first, thank you to Vicky for inviting me, and to Vernon, thank you so much for facilitating such a wonderful conversation. I learned a whole lot about the Olympics that I didn't know. And Helena, I thank you. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing.
That's
Helena?
fine.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not as perplexed by it as I was at 7. So I was adamant at 7. Now, okay, you got a good heart. You're good with me.
Yes, thank you so much for your insights, and it was wonderful. And Mark, if by any chance you're watching, thank you so much. It was really pleasurable
Absolutely.
meeting you and talking to you and hearing your insights. I'm just wondering if going forward, as I think about, where we are, I guess, in society, sometimes I just wonder if it's going to take a whole reset. Maybe I'm not as hopeful as I should be, but I believe that every now and then we have to get to the brink before there's a correction. And we might be kind of pushing ourselves, closer and closer to that brink. I honestly believe it's going to be a spiritual revolution that's necessary. But, that's another topic for another day.
Actually, it's not. But I have a question to ask you guys, and then we can, do what we have to do, Mr. Moderator. But does anyone here believe that this whole global pandemic has not been the upstart of another revolution that's about to happen? Because the entire world shut down for 90 days, the entire world. And I'm kind of wondering if that's not the reset button that's supposed to be taking place. Because in the midst of that, people were still protesting around the world about this Black man being murdered. And when I saw that, I was like, this may be the beginning of what Gil Scott here in the revolution being televised.
Right.
And I've still lived by that. I mean, everything that I've seen about it has been about resetting that button. We do it to our cable boxes or whatever. You have to press on our phones. We reset. And I think that you hit it. That's what we're doing. We're resetting for the next level that's going to be better than the one before. It's not going to be perfect, but I think it's going to reset things for the next level that the world will revolve on. I really do. I really think. Does anybody else feel that way? I have felt that way the whole past year and a half. Am I wrong?
I don't know if you're right or wrong. I do believe whatever we're going through is going to get worse before it gets better, and it will eventually get better, but I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. That's just me. I don't have anything to go on. It's just a feeling.
But like Rick said, when you reset, that your TV go out first before it comes back up. It's take a few moments.
Right.
I'm just curious. That's one of the conversations I can't wait to have when I get all my friends together. We're gonna sit around the fire, roast marshmallows, have lunch, and we're gonna figure this out.
Yes.
Right for that circle, right, Vernon?
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna figure it out. Oh, we think we will anyway.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh wow! It's been
Once
great
again,
talking to you guys.
this is awesome, and you guys have fired and inspired me. And have a good night. Have a good and safe 4th of
Yes.
July holiday weekend. I don't really celebrate that holiday, but be safe wherever you
celebrate
are.
the whole month, Vern. Happy birthday to me. This is my birthday.
All right.
Okay.
And the 4th was just an excuse for my daddy, whose birthday was the 1st, and I to reconnect and to replug in to get ready for the next few days of celebrations.
Yes.
That was my 4th of July. It was just sort of like, okay, we gotta take it and let's go. So, praise be for you all. This has really been uplifting to my soul. But I'm gonna look at the Olympics differently this year. I can't wait, because with the extra year, it's changed some things around. So I can't wait let's see what
Mhm.
happens. Let's get together afterwards and discuss it. Because I'm sure there's gonna be some upsets going on.
Oh,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, yes.
All
Vicky,
right.
thank you so much. I
And
Thank
feel
you,
better.
Vicky. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and we're right on time. And thank you guys once again for your time, for your
Mhm.
opinions. We love you. Thank you. Look forward to hopefully seeing you all at homecoming.
Not
Um,
this year, you won't. You said, now you can't contradict yourself.
I know. I'm doing mask. I'm still masked and
We
distancing
can't
as
get
much.
together without hugging and touching. Now you
Yeah, I
know,
know. I know.
50%
I
of
know.
the people out there are not us.
I know. I know.
So I'll see you 22.
Okay.
Somebody goes live, I'll watch it from there. But other than
Okay.
that, I'll see you 22.
Yes.
Peace and love, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Same
Have
to
a
you
good night.
both. Okay,
Bye-bye.
good night.
Good night.